Let's start with a very interesting Reddit story from serious-_face. Putting a smile from A to Z. Gear yourself up, as this is a long one. All your punctuation and spelling experts take their day off, as this is a story about a delivery driver, myself, not a job that requires an ology in the mechanics of the English language. At the start of COVID in UK, where all good stories start, I had myself an easy job working in a casino. Once lockdown started, we were all put on furlough for 6 months. I finally had all that free time that I said I had needed to do all the things I have never had the time to do. Like many people, having time is not the same as having motivation. And all I did in that 6 months was become very good at Call of Duty, drinking beer, and putting on weight. After the first lockdown was lifted, we returned to work with many changes, and most of them just made the job a drudge, and I started to hate it. When we were told that we would be going into lockdown again, I had to make a choice for my own sanity and my waistline, that I would leave this job and do something so I could be working. Sounds crazy now that I would choose work over free money for doing nothing, but that is what I did. There is also a story in this, but that's for another Reddit. The new job. I looked on Facebook, it was lockdown, and it was easy. See above, lacks motivation. I found recurring adverts for work with one of the world's largest online shops. We will call them amazing, not amazing. And this was in the last mile part of the service as a delivery associate, delivery driver. The money was good, and you would be driving a branded van, all fuel paid, easy job on the face of it. In September, I contact them and get called in to do a tux test. While I'm here, I get the info on the situation. I'm not actually working for Amazing, not amazing, but I'm working for a delivery service partner, DSP. In fact, I'm not really working for them, as I'm a self-employed contractor. In essence, I was to be paid £100 a day, and if we got good delivery numbers for a week, we would get a bonus at one of 3 levels on all the days I worked. It's a standard thing with Amazing and the branded vans. Having heard some horror stories of how the non-branded drivers are treated and fleeced by the DSP that they work for, Amazing, not amazing, knows what's going on and don't care. This seemed a good deal. No in-van training was given due to COVID, but I've driven big vans and trucks and all sorts, so not a problem for me. Scary to think though, they give no training and let people loose on the roads in these vans, and it's not changed much without the COVID restrictions. Amazing, not amazing, seem to not worry about this. The work takes a bit of getting used to, and it's hard work to start with and in all weather conditions. The routes are all pre-caged, so you collect your parcels and you get a device that tells you where to go. Route times are 8 hours, and the little Amazing computer programs the route. You have 1 hour extra for retries. When you first start out, even after 9 hours, you'll have been behind, and some poor soul who finished their route early will come and rescue you. More on this later. If you go over the 9-hour mark, your DSP gets a fine from Amazing, not amazing. By the time December rolls around, the DSP that I'm working for has taken on loads of extra drivers and more branded vans, even taken on 20 non-branded vans with promises from Amazing for continued work over the festive season and into the next year. Not even half the non-branded vans got used. I've become very efficient at looking at my route in the morning and changing it around. My 8-hour route can be completed in 4 to 5 hours, and in December we started work at 6 a.m, so I was the one doing the rescues. Or if everyone was up to date, I would be home by midday. It was really that easy, although them bonuses never seemed to kick in. Amazing, not amazing, never had a problem with it. And I was working weekends when they had a real problem getting people to work them days, and to many people dropping shifts. Roll into January, and suddenly Amazing, not amazing, tells my DSP, we can't give you all that work we promised, so you are going to have to let a load of your drivers go. End of January, I get home, and my partner throws a pregnancy test at me and said, I'm not getting fat, I'm pregnant. Then bursts into tears. Turns out she was 5 months pregnant, neither of us are young, and she just thought it was menopause. Not the ideal time with work laying off drivers, but I had laid good groundwork to being a good driver, never sick, always working weekends and helping out when needed, even picking up dropped shifts. I had to drop a shift a week so the DSP could keep as many drivers as possible, just in case not amazing, actually gave them more work. I was fine with that, and the 4-day week means more time with the baby mama, watching her belly grow with the baby due in May. By the end of April, I'm doing 5-day weeks again. And now COVID restrictions are loosening up a bit more, and the DSP I work for are trading new drivers and getting them to go out a couple of times with experienced drivers to show them the ropes, and I get to be doing that a lot. It's a great skive as it's half routes, and even with someone that's slow, it's 4 hours max. I tell them I'm going to be off for a bit from mid-May, and I'll let them know when I'm coming back. I don't get holiday pay or paternity leave, but my bank balance is okay, and damn, I'm about to be a dad. I take off till early July. It's great being home with the baby and her mum. She is awesome. Her mum is awesome and life is good. But I've made the decision that I need to be doing something else, as this job has very limited prospects. I start on a course that'll take about a year, and I can do it around working for amazing, not amazing. I go back to work, and it kind of runs the same as the year before, but I get to train new drivers. And again, as Christmas comes, the DSP takes on loads of new drivers and a load more vans. As amazing, not amazing, has promised them more work even after the Christmas peak. I shit you not, they hired 10 non-branded vans and I only ever saw 2 go out on routes. I say nothing and just crack on head down, only working 4 days, 2 of which are weekends, as I need to study and help out with the baby. Come January and all that work, amazing, not amazing, had promised the DSP was no place to be seen, and it was time to get rid of excess drivers. Again, I'm in a good position as I complete my routes and help when needed. Also work Saturday and Sunday. I need a minimum of 4 days a week to cover my lavish lifestyle, pay my bills, support my family. Already spoke with the boss and told him this, and was assured that because of my rank, top 5 driver, it was of little importance to me until this. In the DSP, I'd be fine. Here comes the malicious compliance. Sorry it took so long. Come February, I check the rota, and I've only got 3 days while other people get 5 days. And they don't do weekends yet, I do. Not one to be messed around. I contact the boss and explain my frustration at my lack of work, and tell them that going forward, I won't be working weekends unless I get 4 shifts. The following week, we are told that if you want more than 3 shifts a week, you need to work at least 1 weekend shift. Following week, I'm on 3 shifts again, and including Sunday and Saturday, the week runs Sunday to Saturday, I go in on Sunday, speak to the boss, and he says nothing he can do about it now. I tell him, you best get someone to cover that Saturday then, as I won't be doing it. Come Saturday, my phone gets lit up, and I just ignore it. I put in my request for the next week, Monday to Wednesday, no weekends, and 3 days only. Had a nice late sleep on Sunday, removed my DSP boss's number from my favorites so it couldn't get past my silent mode on my phone. And sure enough, I had about 10 missed calls and a few messages asking me to cover dropped routes. On Monday, I was back in, did my route. Took about 5 hours, and the rest of the week went like that. Come the weekend, I'd get missed calls and messages as they were desperate for weekend drivers. Not much they could do, as I was only doing 3 days a week now and not working weekends. Come March and all of a sudden, amazing, not amazing. Tell the DSP that your drivers are finishing their routes too quick. Tell them to slow down. I get told this and I'm like, hold on, we get paid the same money to do the same job, but you want us to do it slower. By this time, I've had enough and I'm ready to quit anyway. And I've got myself something else lined up that I'd been working on, so I went out on that day and bashed my route out in just over 3.5 hours. Admittedly, my boss was not happy, but I no longer had any respect for him, so it didn't bother me. Next day, I'm 30 drops ahead and get the message that I need to slow down or I won't be on the rota next week, so I Zoom call my dad and we chat for an hour. I actually take a lunch break, the first one I'd ever had as a delivery driver, managed to push it to 7 hours, and still, I got berated in the team WhatsApp group. So I thought, sod this. I came in the next day with some textbooks and put my device in airplane mode. When I got 30 ahead, I stopped, did some reading, got myself 30 behind chilled, even had a nap one time after the baby had a bad night. I did this for a few weeks. My days were longer, but I was getting my study done and my course was nearly done. I had set up an interview with a company that would give me a job, and obviously I did it over a Zoom call from the back of my delivery van. I overrun on my route that day by 15 minutes, which is a big no, but hey, I got the job, so wasn't too bothered. I needed to continue working for 4 more weeks, but I was going to do it at a snail pace, a snail with a limp. I maxed out my drive time every day. They stopped sending people to rescue me as I'd just slow down even more. I went from top rank to lowest and still no sign caring about it. I jacked it in a week early as I no longer had the will or the need to do it. I will say this about that job. I met some great people and made some good friends. I experienced people from other countries and cultures, and we had a laugh when it was good. But the staff turnover is unbelievable, and how that company treats people like expendable objects has really darkened my view of them. Now, I'm sorry if I bored you with this, but it amused me at the time, and I thought I'd share. The malicious compliance was perfectly executed, and it was strategic, calculated, and satisfying. By slowing down and embracing the inefficiency, OP made a clear point without sacrificing personal goals. The next story from Itnaz: don't use anything except Windows? Sure, have it your way. Before I start, let me just point out that this is not a Windows versus topic. Some 6 years ago, I worked in a small IT services shop that had an extremely liberal BYOD policy. You could use anything you wanted as long as it got the job done and does not introduce any problems into the client's network or infrastructure. Sounds fair enough. As I have been using Linux for almost 2 decades, and most of my job is centered sending emails or traveling to the client's offices to diagnose any problems, I figured a Linux machine would not compromise my workflow much. Most of those devices are network appliances which are managed either by command line or a web-based GUI. And if the device in question was a standard server running Windows, I could RDP into it using XFreeRDP. Nothing that specifically required Windows. Now mind you, desktop Linux has its own fair share of shits and problems that Windows users will never ever encounter, even by today's, yes, in 2021, standards. Teething and long-standing problems like laptops failing to resume after suspend, mysterious hardware issues caused by the kernel drivers, the Linux sound system and graphics system failing to properly switch over after the laptop has been connected to an external display or projector, X suddenly throwing a fit and deciding it doesn't want to start up the desktop GUI, and on and on. It's one thing when these problems happen at home, but it's a totally different level of pissed off and frustration while they happen while out at work. Naturally, my clients didn't appreciate me taking longer than usual to address their issues when Linux decides to act up. But since I generally manage to, eventually, resolve their problems, they tend to close one eye as a professional courtesy. Besides, it also meant that they could seek me out for free advice on certain issues that involved their Linux servers, in exchange for their silence on my laptop's mishaps. My manager thought differently, though. To him, it is an embarrassment for a support staff's laptop to be running into all kinds of problems while at a client's premises. Finally, after one too many mishaps, he chewed me out big time. Manager: after a presentation where my laptop decided to pull a Murphy and started flashing a nice mess of colors and lines over the projector in the middle of the session, most Xorg graphics drivers were and are still a complete joke today. How many times has this been? Me: I'm sorry, sir. Manager: don't give me that. From now on, you will use only Windows in your laptop. Do I make myself clear on this? Now, in all fairness, I was already considering a switch to Windows 8. Windows 10 was not released yet for my work laptop because of all the little paper cuts that I had to put up with on Linux. Habit, and because I'm used to it, has no influence on the matter when work is concerned. But at the same time, I was petty enough that I felt the urge to put up some form of token resistance, if only just even the score, so to speak. Regardless, I took out the hard disk containing Linux from my laptop installed a new hard disk in its place, and performed a clean installation of Windows 8. And life was so much better. Still, I kept the old hard disk in a portable case in my bag at all times with a set of screwdrivers, should there ever be any need for it. One fine day, I followed my manger to another client's site to inspect some networking issues. The client was running a network test appliance in their lab network. This tester generates garbage but proper network traffic to a defined destination IP address, and they were wondering why the destination was only receiving less than 1% of the garbage they were expecting to see. Now, I am way out of my league here. I have no formal training or certifications in networking outside of my own experiences and self-study, and informed the client as such, but they weren't bothered. They assured me that they just wanted to exhaust all possibilities as to why the destination node wasn't getting the garbage they were supposed to see, and it would be a learning experience for all the people involved, including themselves. With that assurance in mind, I had them lead me to the destination node, which was a workstation running on Windows 7 with Wireshark to perform a packet capture of all incoming traffic. First alarm bell starts going off. Before I could even say anything, my manager cut in and said that it's probably because they were using Windows 7 for the destination node, and that my laptop with Windows 8 may produce better results. I swear, I had to fight the urge to roll my eyes on hearing this. And when I tried to explain to him how unlikely a newer version of Windows would even solve anything, he brushed it off, saying that we should try everything. Well, if he wants to make a fool of himself, I'm game. Cue the MC. For the 2 hours, he kept giving me all manner of instructions and suggestions which naturally did not work. Changing the MTU size, changing the NIC settings, applying certain Windows updates, etc., and I had no desire to oppose him in making a fool of himself. Finally, when he was about to call it quits as the client's working hours were about to end, I asked the client if they could tell me a little more about the traffic that was being generated by the network tester. Oh, all kinds of traffic. GRE, MPLS, VLAN, and stacked VLANs, fiber channel, a lot of types actually. Second alarm bell starts going off. For those who are not familiar, hardware network drivers in Windows are usually end-user drivers supplied by the vendors of the NIC and submitted to Microsoft for integration purely as a convenience. That is, they are drivers that are designed to be used for nothing more than standard TCP/IP and UDP/IP communication over Ethernet. Any frame or packet that is not recognized by the driver gets dropped silently. No warning, no alert. Just dropped. Such drivers are perfect for normal networking, but are almost completely useless for diagnosing enterprise network issues where VLANs, tunnels, and other protocols are commonplace. On the other hand, a NIC driver in Linux usually supports a much more comprehensive network stack and thus has a drastically higher chance in seeing and recording different kinds of network traffic than Windows during a packet capture. So I was fairly certain at this point that there was nothing wrong with their network tester or their lab network at all. It was just the NIC driver in Windows doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Drop any traffic it does not recognize, and asked the client if they could kindly stay back for just about 30 minutes after their working hours for me to try one last option. They agreed, so I took the old Linux hard disk out from my bag and proceeded to do a hard disk swap on my laptop. In the meantime, my manger was grumbling non-stop about me wasting everybody's time and being stubborn and refusing to use Windows as instructed. With the old Linux hard disk installed, I booted up into my old installation, connected the laptop to the network tester, and started T-Shark. Almost immediately, everyone could see my laptop's gigabit port being flooded with traffic, and the packet count was easily more than 30 times what was observed in Windows. Finally, for the coup de grace, I cut the capture and opened the PCA PNG file in Wireshark, which proudly displayed traffic from all the various network protocols previously mentioned. Of course, I also informed the client that there was nothing wrong with their workstation, with Windows, or with the network tester. They just needed to find a modified or debug driver that could recognize such traffic, or otherwise set up a temporary Linux node for their packet capture requirements. On the other hand, my manager was rather poked at me for what he claims was wasting 2 hours of everybody's time, when I already knew what the problem was right from the start, but refused to share it with the others until now. So, it was extremely gratifying when the client stepped in and put my manager in his place by pointing out that 1. He never bothered to ask about the traffic type 2. He assumed that it was a Windows configuration issue, and 3. He never thought to ask me what I thought might be the cause. My manager never spoke to me again after that incident, outside of a half-hearted attempt to retain me when I finally resigned a year later. Update 1. To make it clear, I am not blaming my manager in any way when he made me use Windows, because I would have already done so myself after having to deal with all the random issues encountered while on the job. I just did not take very kindly to the "you will use only Windows" portion of his orders. The malicious compliance was perfectly executed. Despite being forced to use Windows, OP subtly let my manager lead himself into making flawed decisions. The best part was when OP provided the solution, leaving his manager embarrassed and the client impressed.